Subnautica is a game I did not know too much about, other than it's yet another game in the trend of the survival crafting genre. I don't hate that genre, but usually I avoid most of them, as they tend to be early access slop, and they are usually never ending without a plot or any way to complete it. Though I quickly checked, and it turns out you can in fact beat Subnautica, and it's said to be around 20 to 30 hours long. That, plus the whole deep sea exploration thing, is actually really cool and appealing to me, so I figured I'd give it a shot. The game has a few modes: Survival, which is the default mode, Hardcore, which is permadeath, and Sandbox, no death, no damage. Of course, I just went with the standard survival mode. The game's premise is pretty simple. Your giant galactic ship crash lands on an alien planet. It's full of life pods from the other crew members which got scattered around the planet, and you wake up on one of these small life pods. That's how the game starts. The first impression was a lot of intrigue. The game does a good job with just letting the player roam around and figure things out by themselves. So you just do a lot of swimming around in the water by your life pod, scrounging for resources to continually craft more and more advanced stuff to help you traverse this alien planet. The graphics are immediately striking. The first obvious sight is this massive crashed ship in front of your life pod, the Aurora, which is still on fire. This thing is so big that it acts as a nice landmark wherever you are in the game. You can come up to the surface and see this ship in the distance. That's probably one of the main reasons that devs put it like that, so you don't just feel like you're out into this aimless open ocean. It's a clever idea to make an important landmark. In fact, the very first thing I did was jump off my life pod and swim towards this giant ship, just to see what would happen. It turns out you just die, because at least at the start of the game, it's too radiated, and you can't get close. It still was interesting. And when you die, it seems like you just lose a few items and you get sent back to the life pod. But besides some threats here and there, the game overall has a very nice atmosphere. It's often calming, and it's almost comfy at times. It's a very colorful game, with lots of diverse and strange things to find underwater. There's tons of fish swimming around all over the place. And of course you can use them for food and even water. There's always something interesting to look at. Since you're on an alien planet, everything is just a bit strange. There are different biomes, which become obvious as you start to travel around. The starting location is in this shallow area, very close to the main ship's crash site. But as you go in other directions, you come across all sorts of other strange alien biomes. This giant mushroom tree area, these areas with big blue orbs, these giant, almost floating rock areas. It's kind of hard to describe because the game takes place on an alien planet, and everything is so foreign looking. But it definitely fills you with a sense of wonder, mystery, and at times trepidation, like a lingering sense of fear. Of course, as you go deeper and deeper, you start to come across even more strange and even disturbing sights and sounds. It's kind of unfortunate the game has no co-op functionality. It seems like a no-brainer for this kind of game, and could really enhance the experience doing everything with a friend. But maybe they wanted to push that more isolated vibe. The game's mechanics are quite simple, and almost elegant. You dive around with an oxygen meter. At first you only get like 30 seconds of breath, but you can upgrade your tank by collecting various materials and bringing them back to your life pod's fabricator. The crafting is well done and simple. The fabricator interface is intuitive and easy to understand. You just need to bring the ingredients to the station, and it shows you the recipes where you can fabricate items. Your life pod has some essential objects, like the radio, to get periodic radio messages from other survivors. The life pod even has a health kit spawner nearby. Every day it makes a free health kit for you. So a lot of what you're doing at first is diving around your life pod, picking up any materials that seem useful, and then going back to the fabricator to craft new items so you can dive deeper and progress further and further from the life pod. The fabricator is the primary and only way to craft items in the game. But at first, the most obvious question in my mind is, okay, what do I do? The game isn't linear. There's no hand-holding. It mostly expects the player to use their own volition to go about the game world and figure out how to progress. Thankfully, it's not completely aimless. You have a PDA, which logs almost everything you do. You can craft a scanning device, which is one of the most important items in the game. You can scan almost everything you come across, and it adds an entry into the PDA, often giving you helpful tips and advice. The first thing on the PDA is basic survival tips. Then you get some random radio messages, usually a distress message from an old life pod that sank, and it gives you the coordinates, which is indicated on a beacons page on your PDA. This page looked to be the most important piece of story progression. It's a list of objective markers. So for much of the game, I would just wait around for these radio messages, and then use the beacons page to set an objective marker and go towards it. Of course you have standard survival mechanics, food and water. Food is easy enough to come by. You can literally swim up to almost any fish and just grab them with your bare hands and put them in your inventory to later cook at a fabricator, although they do go bad after a while, unless you use salt, which was kind of too much of a hassle, so I didn't do that. For water, the most accessible source is grabbing a bunch of bladder fish and going to the fabricator to turn them into filtered water. That's what I did for the whole game pretty much. The food and water is pretty well done. It's fine to have to keep up with it, although it does drain pretty fast, and at times can feel like busy work. Still, it's good to be a part of the game. It helps with immersion. You can craft all sorts of tools, like a laser cutter for opening certain doors at certain wrecks. It's usually used to help you find more blueprints and stuff to craft. There's a flashlight, which is really important, which you don't have at the beginning of the game, so when nighttime comes around you can barely do anything unless you make a flashlight. There's a repulsion cannon, and a stasis gun, which I never really used much. There's a repair tool, which can easily be used to repair your vehicles, and so on. There's a nice variety of stuff you can play with and interact with, which keeps the crafting and blueprint unlocking exciting and fresh. As for the radio messages, usually they take you to a new biome, and you find the remains of their life pod underwater. You find a PDA of their last moments, and you usually unlock some new blueprint or something you can craft. Still, I was starting to get a sense that I don't know if I'm meaningfully progressing the story. Sometimes there would be hours of real-life time where I'm just roaming around not doing much, getting no radio calls, trying to figure out what's next. So the fact that the game doesn't really hold the player's hand and leaves you to figure things out is both a good and bad thing. Because at times you can start to feel stressed out that maybe you've missed some tiny nook and cranny which has the utmost important piece of story progression in them. In fact, 1 or 2 times this pretty much happened, and I sadly had to look up online what I'd missed. There's crucial upgrades, story spots, and materials that you can easily go right past. They are not always obvious or easy to spot. You're kinda just expected to stumble onto them by pure chance almost. You could be playing for a dozen hours and not come across one of them. Another issue that became annoying, without an obvious fix at first, was storage. For the first handful of hours in the game, I was using the life pod. The life pod has 1 storage compartment, but that's it. It won't let you build anything inside of the life pod. The only way I could find to get more storage was to craft these little floating containers and put them outside the life pod. So I'd just have a dozen of these annoying floating containers I'd have to constantly go back and forth just to store my items. It wasn't clear how exactly I'm supposed to get more storage. Sadly, after a bunch of hours, I had to look it up. So to get more storage, you have to use this tool called the Habitat Builder, which is how you craft your own base. And I had to create some kind of building. I used the preset item called Multi-Purpose Room, which was like this big circular building. I put it nearby the life pod, and it still wouldn't let me enter it. I looked around in game, but it wasn't obvious. Sadly, I had to look this up as well. It turns out you need to attach a hatch to it. Okay, like that makes sense, I guess. But I feel like the game could have had some kind of tutorial or pop-up message or something when you're building. Like it could at least be like, cannot enter without a hatch. Anyway, with that all done, now inside of this multi-purpose room, I could build lockers. Finally, I have some damn storage. This was like 10 hours into the game. It was quite annoying having no storage all that time. Maybe it's just a skill issue on my part. Sure, there's some of that. But also the game could have made it more obvious how I'm expected to get storage. Now that I have my own base, full of lockers, as well as inside of this base you can even build more powerful tools, such as an advanced workbench to craft even stronger tools and equipment, as well as even all sorts of stuff like decorations, a water filtration system, which generates bottles of water for you, although it's really slow. You can build all sorts of stuff, things which I never really ended up needing, but worth noting, such as the nuclear reactor, all sorts of plant farms, this alien containment aquarium, a scanner room, a bioreactor, and so on. Lots of things to interact and play with, if building your own base is the kind of thing you love to do. Me, not too much. I'm not into just building a base for the sake of being creative or whatever. I'm just wanting to progress through the game, so all I really needed was the storage space, and the advanced workstation, as they are pretty much mandatory to keep progressing. Of course, this review is going to have a bunch of spoilers, so keep that in mind. At some point into the game, the giant flaming ship explodes, causing radiation nearby, but you get a way to make a radiation suit. So I make the suit, and I make my way to the ship. By the way, earlier when I said the game has a sense of fear about it, yeah, there's giant sea monsters called Leviathans, and one of them lurks near the giant ship, which is pretty cool and intense to see, though I will make a minor gripe that the game's art style is pretty cartoony. It's almost too cartoony. It's still nice to look at, but I feel like especially the Leviathans could have been even more terrifying with a different art style. I also think the Leviathans you encounter could have been even bigger. Sure, they're massive, but it doesn't feel like a real towering threat. Even when you do come across them, they aren't too threatening. You can easily get away, and they don't charge at you all too much. And even if you do die, all that happens is you drop a few pieces of equipment and respawn at your life pod. In fact, you can even manually save your game, and as soon as you die or get in a bad situation, you can simply quit to main menu and press continue, and it loads your save from before something bad happened. I didn't want to rely on this too much, it's kinda cheap, but I did do it a few times. It's a standard feature in many games, what can I say? If the devs didn't want you to be able to do this, they should have disabled manual saving, and should have just like constantly autosave, something which other intense games have done. Actually, another gripe is that the game overall isn't very threatening. None of the sea creatures really bother you. You do come across some hostile creatures at points, namely the Warpers, which are these strange alien creatures that seem to hunt you down, and even at times send you ominous radio messages, but really they don't do much even if you're in their vicinity. The worst they will do is sometimes warp you outside of your vehicle, and then you just swim back and get in. There's other creatures like these giant squids, which look kind of terrifying, but don't do that much damage or even attack you all that often. You can get hit with these electronic pulses, which temporarily turn off the power in your vehicle. It's a nuisance more than a real threat. Funny enough, the most threatening creature I found was inside of shallow caves, this little homing missile fish that explodes at you. I actually died once to these guys. I find them more threatening than Leviathans and hostile aliens, funny enough. Really, there's not that much actual danger in the game, at least from creatures. The real danger most of the time is just managing your oxygen and not drowning. And if you go too far off the regular map, you start to enter the void, also known as the ecological dead zone. This is basically just infinite darkness, and you can go down forever. It's just the end of the map, but it's a clever way to incorporate it into the game world by making it seem like you're just gone into the deep, deep sea. There's nothing down here, except often the game spawns Leviathans which attack you. Probably because the game doesn't really want you to be down here. It's a very spooky feeling to be gone off into this void. And the massive Aurora ship seems to be at the edge of the map, because if you dive down just past it, you quickly come to a big slope downwards, where the map ends and you go into the void. Anyway, exploring the ship was cool, but also had some frustration and confusion. For starters, there's 2 entrances, and one of them is pretty easy to miss, but it's crucial. And of course I missed it. And I thought, I feel like I'm missing something, hours later, and looked it up, sadly. Even weirder is the entrance is blocked off with a bunch of random objects and boxes. So naturally you think it's just an inaccessible area. Really though, it's not. It's a crucial point of progression. You need to make this propulsion gun, almost like the Half-Life gravity gun, and you need to use it to pick up the boxes to gain entry. Okay, I don't think I would have ever figured that out without looking it up. Just obscure stuff needed to get through the game. It's one of the major complaints I have. Inside of the ship, you find all sorts of story information, blueprints, and codes. I came across this vehicle bay, where you find blueprints to make this mech suit called a prawn, but I only found 2 out of 3 blueprints, and I could not find the last one anywhere. Hours later, when I was stuck not being able to progress again, I thought, you know, I bet I need this prawn suit to progress further. And I didn't feel like wandering around aimlessly for a dozen hours doing nothing, so sadly, once again, I had to look it up. Blueprints of important crafts are scattered around the sea almost randomly, but thankfully there's more than you need. You just need to come across them. Usually you only need 2 or 3 pieces to unlock the craft, but I could not come across this last prawn suit piece myself though. I looked up rough biomes where to find them, finally found it and crafted myself the prawn suit. So you do get access to all sorts of different tech and vehicles. You start off being able to craft a sea glider, which is like a handheld little device that makes you swim way faster, something I kept in my inventory the whole game. Then you can unlock a sea moth, which is like the fastest vehicle in the game, this little jet, with the downside that it has a default maximum crush depth of 200, which is not very deep. After this, it will get destroyed. And then there's the mech suit, Prawn. This by default has a maximum crush depth of 900 meters, which is much more. Although it's way slower and pretty clunky to move around in. At least it has a jetpack, so you can jump around through the ocean. Lastly, at one point, I found blueprints for a Cyclops submarine and crafted it. Weirdly, by default, this only has a maximum depth of 500, way less than the Prawn mech suit. So actually for the entire game, I never really found a use for the Cyclops submarine. Also, as a side note, Cyclops submarine was invented and trademarked by OceanGate. Yeah. It's cool you get access to a huge sub. You can walk around inside of it. It has all sorts of gadgets and switches to press. You can upgrade it. But the thing is so massive it barely fits anywhere, as the ocean has all sorts of little cracks and crevices you need to fit through. The thing is really slow, and it has less depth by default than the Prawn, so sadly I didn't find it very useful. Those are the main vehicles. I mostly just used the Sea Moth for speed, and the Prawn mech suit, or when I needed to go really deep. I was able to find blueprints to continuously upgrade my oxygen tank, from just 30 seconds to then 70, then eventually all the way to 220 oxygen, which really helped a lot. At one point, all of a sudden, a message box pops up on the top right of the screen, saying you'll be rescued in 40 minutes, and to go to some rescue pickup location. So I go there, but the rescue ship actually gets blown up out of the sky by this big alien gun from a nearby facility. That was a shocking plot twist. Then the rest of the game is about finding more of these alien bases and disabling the gun, so you can build a rocket to escape. But you can't disable the alien anti-air gun because the button for it does not work if you are infected, and it turns out you're infected at the start of the game. Basically everything in the water is infected, all the fish you eat and probably the water itself. It's an interesting plot, and you always want to see where it goes next. Although quite a few times, like I mentioned previously, I had no clue what to do next and was left kinda clueless. You go around this alien base, which is on land. It was surprising to see land in the game. So you search the island and find these purple tablets, which is used to unlock alien areas. But then it's like, now what? I fully explored the island and was left a bit clueless from there. There is a second island, which you can teleport to from the first island with this big gate. But it was kind of a similar feeling. I fully explored it, found all the PDAs, but this island is a damn maze and really easy to get lost in and not be able to find your way back to the teleport. The teleport location should have been way more obvious, with a more distinct landmark. Basically, at some point, the radio messages just stop coming in. There's no more. You've been to all the life pods, you've checked out the giant crashed ship, then it's like, what do I do now? I was a bit stumped. I roamed around for a few hours, not doing much. Although I started to be able to build pieces of the rocket to be able to leave the planet. I built the rocket foundation and a few more pieces, but the last rocket pieces needed materials I've never seen. The last beacon objective marker I had said Aurora Rendezvous Point, which is just some location on the second island, with an associated note saying some captain went down into the ocean deep and got attacked by a Leviathan. It turns out what you have to do from here is basically just try to keep going down as deep as possible. In order to do this, you need to fully upgrade your vehicles, mostly the prawn mech suit. But again, I feel like at times the game could have nudged you towards what you're supposed to do a bit more, because quite a few times I would dive deep down, like 700 meters down, and find these new mystical, scary alien underworlds. Like one time, I found a giant Leviathan skeleton with a door that needed a golden tablet. Well, I don't have any golden tablets. Is that progress? Where do I get a gold tablet? Who knows? But no, it turns out that isn't the progression point. The actual progression point is basically to dive down like 900 meters past the rendezvous point and finding this underwater alien research facility, which was really easy to miss, tucked in some crevice. See what I mean? Crucial progression points are like finding a needle in a haystack, or worse. That's one of the biggest gripes I have with the game. It's not all bad. Like, it does fill you with a sense of wonder and excitement and mystery, but sometimes it can stress you out feeling like you missed something, wasting tons of time going back and forth. Anyway, once you go really far down, of course there's multiple Leviathan enemies down here, which is both spooky and exciting. This place is filled with giant skeletons of ancient Leviathans, which is a cool sight. So you check out this underwater alien research base. It hints towards a possible cure for the infection, and there's a wall you can't unlock unless you have a purple tablet. Guess what? I didn't bring a purple tablet. Cue 30 more minutes of backtracking all the way just to grab a purple tablet, just to come back down. After opening it, I get a PDA entry talking about another alien base 1,400 meters down, southwest of this current one. Well, that's the next objective, I guess. Thankfully, you start unlocking a bunch of shortcut teleports, so you can easily get back down here. One of the shortcuts is at the first alien base with the big cannon. So the next objective is at 1,400 meters down, but my prawn suit by default only goes down to 900. Basically, the only way I found out how to progress from here is to just save my game and go down as far as I possibly could, and then die, quit to main menu, and reload my previous save without losing anything, just to see what was down there. It's a lava location, and here is the materials needed to further craft the rocket, as well as the next depth upgrade for my prawn mech suit. Also, some mandatory materials can mostly only be mined from this prawn mech suit with a drill arm upgrade. Like, there's these big boulders that you need to mine from, so you need to go back and craft all those upgrades first. Once I realized the lava place had all the materials I needed, I found a spot that wasn't at the crush depth, and I was able to mine it with the prawn, and go back and upgrade my prawn. Now I can go to like 1,700 meters. Now I can fully explore the lava place. There's a giant lava Leviathan here, which is pretty scary. I got the message from my PDA, saying there's a base located at the center of the lava place. You climb around aimlessly for like 30 minutes trying to find the entrance. Of course, it's tucked away in the most obscure tiny crevice. I find it and it takes you to the final alien base. Here you unlock a bunch of shortcuts. You find out how to actually cure yourself of the infection. It's from the excretions of this Emperor Leviathan. You come across a final room which just has a big tank of water you jump in, and there's a cutscene with a friendly giant Emperor Leviathan. It's this woman voice who talks to you and asks you for help hatching her eggs, which is a very weird and interesting turn of events. It's almost Lovecraftian. However, another roadblock and annoyance happens here. You get a recipe to craft hatching enzymes to hatch the eggs, and the item description states, derived from the plants found in the Emperor's natural habitat. Naturally, I think, okay, I just have to find plants inside of this big tank. That's what it sounds like. So I spent like an hour crawling around through this tank trying to find the plants. Only managed to find one. Finally, not knowing how to progress anymore, I had to look it up. And no, that's not what it means. It means you have to find the plants anywhere throughout the entire game world. It's not that bad though, because you just previously unlocked a bunch of teleports to various places throughout the game world, and the plants are all just outside of each teleport. So I get the ingredients, I have to go all the way back to my base just to craft it. I come back, hatch her eggs, Her babies break out and swim around. The giant mama Leviathan dies. The babies leave through a portal. And then the babies excrete these orange balls. I touch one and the infection gets cured. Now I can turn off the alien turret gun. I go and do so, and the game pretty much is finished. Now I have all the stuff needed to finally craft the rocket. I do so, climb into the rocket. There's a funny mechanic here with a time capsule, where you can attach a custom photo you've taken in-game, a message, and some items. I looked it up after what the point of this is, and it turns out the time capsules is actually a kind of online feature. You can come across time capsules scattered around the game, and they're actually left by other players and sometimes developers. Although I think the developer has to manually approve them, still it's a neat feature. So I use the rocket, I blast off from the planet, get a cool cutscene of me leaving the planet, and after the credits it says something like, "You are not permitted to enter the home planet until you pay your debt to our corporation. Your debt is 1 trillion credits." Which is, I guess, a funny, sad twist ending. Like after all that and you're just at a cliffhanger stuck in space. Funny, I guess.
Welcome home to all Terra. Permission to land will be granted once you have settled your outstanding balance of 1 trillion credits.
So that's Subnautica. Honestly, I found the game really addictive, and could almost not stop playing it, despite its few frustrating spots and lack of guidance, which is both a pro and a con. And despite its lack of real threatening enemies or challenges, just going around the game world with its colorful graphics, exciting alien designs, and even the soundtrack, which is really good and immersive, and fitting, it's just a comfy game to exist in. It has a perfect blend of relaxing gameplay, but also having hints of horror, mystery, and suspense, and it's got a lot of tension. I enjoy how it also has lots of downtime, where you're just diving around the ocean collecting stuff. This makes it a game where you can easily just play for hours without even noticing how long you've been playing. It's a captivating experience. I consider myself a fan now. There's even a sort of sequel, Subnautica Below Zero. It's all the same engine, all the same graphics and gameplay, it's just seemingly a new story and environment to explore, which is something I'd like to play soon. And there is a fully fledged new game built from the ground up coming out soon, Subnautica 2, which thankfully has co-op, which would really enhance the experience. Subnautica pleasantly surprised me. I was kind of apprehensive coming into it, thinking I probably would not like it much. Although I found myself hooked, and played it constantly over the 2 or 3 days it took me to finish it. I beat it at around 30 hours played, so it's not super long or anything. It's a great package, despite the few gripes I have with it. 8 out of 10.
Be advised, a common complication for cave divers is loss of orientation, followed by eventual asphyxiation. It is your primary directive to swim closer to that beautiful creature. Swim closer. Swim closer. Detecting multiple Leviathan class life forms in the region. Are you certain whatever you're doing is worth it? This ecological biome matches 7 of the 9 preconditions for stimulating Terra and humans.